Good morning, guys. Today we're going to be, well, this morning, I guess, we're going to be talking about Ukraine and the situation there. Something was posted on mainstream media, and I think it may even have been taken down already. But we're going to talk about that and how the conscripts, how the Ukrainian conscripts are faring up, and how this will just drag NATO into the, it just increases the likelihood now of NATO boots on the ground in Ukraine. But first, before I go on to that, guys, there was an interesting article from the what's just happened? There was an interesting article yesterday, I think yesterday, yesterday from the United States, talking about how if he's elected, he will, well, I'll just read it here, guys. So Donald Trump's come out and he said he will have back pay for troops fired for refusing the vaccination on day one, he says, at NC rally. So Donald Trump's come out and he said basically anybody that was fired for not taking a medical intervention over the past couple of years, anybody that's been fired will be reinstated and they will get back pay and apology from the government. Now, I don't know how you guys think about, I don't know what you guys think about that. You can look at this, two ways. You can look at it, he's backing down on policy, he's backing down on what he said previously, or you can look at this in the context that, they need the military, and those people that they've fired, I don't know the numbers, those people that they fired, they kind of need them back for whatever reason. You guys, again, there's lots of different reasons, and I'm not going to go down those, down those routes of why footballers are wearing these heart monitors. But anyway, guys, that's what's been happening in the United States. It's really, it caught me out. It was a bit of a blindsided one. It caught me off guard, but I think it's really telling of things to come, because they need the military and they need lots of people in the military for the exact same reasons that I'm going to come on to about how conscription, how conscription doesn't work, and we can see it failing. We're seeing all these things come together now, and the realization that governments are going to need boots on the ground, and they're going to need reliable boots on the ground. And guys, doesn't matter what you say, you can't just give somebody a rifle and expect them to go and be, an awesome soldier. It doesn't work like that. And for reasons, and I'll come on to that at the end of the video, guys. So quickly then, let's have an update on what's been happening in Ukraine. Now, when this invasion, I guess it was an invasion. When the invasion of Russia happened by the Ukrainians, I said straight away, I said, okay, you're going to have a situation potentially where the Russians are using their own artillery to bomb their own towns. Now, from this article, guys, Russian warplanes are bombing Russia aiming to block invading Ukrainian troops. This is quite an old article, guys. I didn't see it. So, where are we? Russians, meanwhile, are finally bringing to bear the heaviest of their firepower, lobbing glide bombs at Ukrainian columns rolling alongside Russian roads. For more than a year, these glide bombs, ranging from 25 miles or further, hundreds of pounds of explosives, have been Russia's most powerful offensive weapon, demolishing Ukrainian defenses ahead of Russian ground assaults. You see, the Russians are actually using their aircraft in conjunction with infantry, and the Ukrainians are using their aircraft as more of a defensive role. Russian Air Force Su-34 fighter bombers drop as many as 100 KAB glide bombs every day. Guys, there's no way in a million years that here in the West we can compare that to these, these what are they called, Scalp missiles, or Storm Shadow missiles. We can't produce 100 of those a day, and this is the problem. The Russians are using cheap, easily made munitions, and they're being really effective. And even if we let the Ukrainians use our Storm Shadow missiles and we give them a blank check, they're not going to be able to fire, because they're not going to be able to produce 100 a day. Until this week, they mostly dropped them. So obviously this is a bit of an old article, on the front line in eastern Ukraine, where Russian regiments have been advancing slowly at great cost all spring and summer. So you see these glide bombs here, and I said this long ago, I said there's no answer for these glide bombs. You can't, once they're released, you can't stop them. The bombing campaign began to shift north around Tuesday, roughly the same time that the vanguard of 5 Ukrainian brigades rolled across the border into Kursk, kicking off a surprise counter-invasion. Ukrainian battalions attacked from their bases in Sumy Oblast, right across the border with the Russians. Hang on, where are we, guys? I'm just waffling. Here we are, guys. There's a notable shift in the focus of the enemy's aviation efforts in the theatre of operations. The Ukrainian Centre for Defence Strategies noted up to 50% of all glide bomb strikes now target the territories in the Kursk and Sumy Oblast regions. So what you've got there then is, you know, you've got the actual Russian Air Force now bombing their own towns and cities. Now you've got to look at this and look at the context from the Russian side and the morale that that's having on, well, the effect on the morale that that's having in Russia. Now, I said this is going to be, it could be a turning point, but, you know, you've got to, you know, understand the, what's the word I'm looking for? You've got to understand the, you know, it's a huge morale boost. It's highly significant, but they're not taking that much ground. And with the amount of firepower that the Russians can put down on the Ukrainian advance, I think they're going to, they just can't do it, guys. All right. They physically don't have enough, you know, enough manpower, and a lot of the conscripts, as we're going to come on to shortly, a lot of the conscripts are not, they're failing, basically, the conscripted military. So where have we got, guys? Yeah, and then I'll put the article in the description. Yeah, and then they just talk about, you know, how the Ukrainians try to jam these glide munitions, how to shoot them down. But the reality is there is nothing apart from a kinetic strike that can stop these glide munitions, because, you know, the way you jam something is you jam the control signal, and these things are not flying on a control signal; they're flying on a GPS. That GPS will have a gyro in it, so they can even fly without having the, you know, the GPS signal. They can fly and estimate it that with a gyroscope, basically. Now, also, Ukrainian hackers have managed to, you know, this goes with the, you know, so the Ukrainians are 100% winning the propaganda war. There's no denying that. You know, the Ukrainians have managed to hack Russian state TV and show Ukrainian victories on the TV. Now, you know, they hit the mainstream channels, and I'll put the links in the description. But can you imagine the fear and the propaganda and the what's happening, you know, by the rank and file Russian people who are watching these things on TV? They hear that the Ukrainians are pushed into Russia, they're taking towns, they're taking cities, they're moving forwards, and then you hear, you know, and then there's a TV broadcast you're watching, I don't know, Russian celebrity come dancing or whatever they watch in Russia, I don't know, Cossack dancing. You know, you're watching your favorite Cossacks Got Talent or whatever it is. And then the TV goes off, and you see a load of Ukrainians saying that the war's being won. This is a huge propaganda win for the Ukrainians. I feel that's all it is, though. I feel the situation on the ground doesn't relate to what the propaganda is saying. Now, this article here, guys, is the article that I was surprised they shared, and it might even get taken down. So where are we? So this article here, guys, I'll put these in the link. Where are I? View post, see if it's still up. Yeah. Some new Ukrainian troops refuse to fire at the enemy, contributing to losses in the east. Some new Ukrainian soldiers have refused to fire at the enemy and are struggling with basic combat movements, according to the Associated Press. So this is what happens when you give people like 1 week's military training and then send them off. They don't, it's just not going to work, guys, and it can never work. Citing commandos and fellow fighters, it said that a few new recruits had even walked away from their posts, abandoning the battlefield altogether. One fighter stressed they were still motivated soldiers, but highlighted the problem nevertheless. Commanders have blamed recruits for a string of territorial losses, including those near the city of Pokrovsk. Again, we spoke about Pokrovsk yesterday. It's that rail hub. It's that main supply route where, you know, you've got a lot of, well, you've got 2 roads coming into it, and you've got a rail hub coming into there. Now, a lot of kit, equipment, machinery, manpower is moved by rail. So that's a really strategic point for the Russians to take. And as we saw yesterday on the war map, they're just moving closer and closer towards that every day. Yeah. Some people don't want to shoot. They see the enemy in a firing position in trenches, but don't open fire. That's why our men are dying, said a battalion commander in Ukraine's 47th Brigade. So this is what happens when you push people to fight that don't want to fight. They won't fight. And this is the problem that you're going to get now. And the more these Ukrainian troops fail and fall, and I said this long ago, I said, guys, the Ukrainians can't push people to fight that don't want to fight. It's going to be a disaster, because what's happening is you're getting this false sense of security. So say you've got, I don't know, 100, say you've got 100 motivated troops. They're hardened, they're fighting, they're ready, but they just know they don't have the numbers to push forwards. Okay, so they get reinforced by 500, conscripts who have no intention of fighting. They don't want to be there. They will do anything to get off that front line. Now, they reinforce them, and then there's a big attack planned, a big battle plan. Guess what happens? The 100 run forwards. They're vastly outnumbered, vastly outgunned. Those 100 good fighters are lost. The 500 retreat. They go back. They don't want to fight, and then you've lost those, and then you've suffered mass losses. The Ukrainians need to accept this now, and they need to understand, right, throwing humans at this thing is not going to work, all right? It is not going to work. When they don't use the weapon, they are ineffective. Yeah, we have this situation a lot in Afghanistan when we used to be embedded with the, ANA, the Afghan National Army, and other units. So, when there was a gunfight, the Afghan army would normally not be much use. They'd be hiding on the floor. They wouldn't want to get up. They wouldn't want to take a fire position. They'd let go of their weapons, and a lot of them would just cover their ears. And that's, that's just the reality of the situation. Now, then you have to have somebody who's, a strong commander, a strong section commander. He's then, instead of controlling the battle, instead of trying to win the firefight, he's then trying to get his guys to just do something. And then you get to the situation where, you're trying to, you accept that they're not going to fight. So you're trying to get them just to defend. And then, the whole situation just goes from bad to worse. The more recently conscripted Ukrainians are said to be a far cry from the battle-hardened fighters who flocked to join the war in the first year of the invasion. Guys, this is what happens. Can you imagine now? And we can make this, we can make these simulations with the United Kingdom at the moment. If there was a war, a huge, world war with Russia, with whoever, and Britain had to recruit a load of people, who would be the first to go and fight? Look here, this is what happened. Well, let's look what happened in Ukraine. The battle-hardened fighters who flocked to join the war in the first year of the invasion. Now, the problem here is who's going to be left to rebuild this country? Because all the battle-hardened fighters, those people who are strong, those people who believe in something, those people who want to look after Ukraine, who want to, who want a strong Ukraine, who want to defend Ukraine, who have Ukrainian values, they're the people who will have been lost initially. They're the people in the first waves who will have gone. So the people who will be left to rebuild the country, are these people up here. Where are they? These people here who are not fighting. The new troops are said to lack even minimum level of training. Commanders and soldiers from the 4 brigades defending the Pokrovsk area told Associated Press. So, they're sending people with minimum training into these regions, and, it's just having devastating effects. We've seen this from the battle map that we shared yesterday. We've seen what's happening, and we've seen the Russians pushing forwards and forwards and forwards, and it doesn't look like the Ukrainians are able to. And so this is from the map, guys. It doesn't look like the Ukrainians are putting up any resistance. It looks to me like the Russians are just moving slow and methodically. The main problem is the survival instinct of newcomers. Before, people could stand until the last moment to hold position. Now, even when there is light shelling of firing positions, they are retreating, said a soldier with the 110th Brigade. So that is what you get, guys, right? When you push, conscripts forwards, untrained, unmotivated conscripts, this is what happens. And this has happened, you can go back to the American Civil War when they were paying Irish conscripts, they've got nothing to fight for. They don't want to be there. They won't fight. They'll cause you more battlefield problems than, than battlefield gains, 100%. Now, This brings us on to what we briefly touched on yesterday about the imminency of, well, the potential imminency of NATO troops moving into Ukraine. Now, I know what people are saying. They're saying it's impossible, it's never going to happen. And some people say they're already there, they're trainers, they're just, you know, the reality is all these things are true. But what we've got to remember is what Macron said. He said it, you know, he said, first of all, he said he would send French troops if there was significant gains in the east, if the Russians made significant gains in the east, and Zelensky asked for it. He was then asked a couple of days later, or I think it was a week later, he was asked again, what did you mean? Do you still stand by it? And he doubled down on it. So he confirmed it. You know, he got a chance to get, you know, he got a get out of jail free card, and he said, no, you know, what I said, right, we will do this. Now, the question is, will this happen? I think there's no argument if the Russians manage to take Pokrovsk, then they will. There's no argument to say that the Russians are not making significant gains in the east. Then lies the question: will Zelensky ask Macron? And let's not, guys, let's be under no illusion. You know, these guys have already, in fact, these guys have already had, you know, these conversations. Hang on. You know, these guys have already had this conversation, and they've already, you know, they've already come to these agreements. So these things are already done deals. Here we are, guys. Let me just show this. I don't know what this. Let me just share this picture. Hang on. So look at that picture there, guys. You know, and I always say this. I always say, because, you know, I've been in these situations and I've been in these meetings at government level. And these policies that the politicians make, and, you know, these things go through government, and they say this, and they sign this decree, and they sign this agreement. None of that matters, guys. It doesn't. It's not worth the paper. It is not worth the paper it's written on. The only thing that matters is the interpersonal relationships between those two leaders. That is the reality of the situation. I don't care what anybody says, you know, and that's why I know the UK is in total doom, because we're sending people like David Lammy to go and do these meetings. But anyway, guys, let's look at this. You know, Macron switches from dove to hawk on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is from the 16th of March. Look at that picture there, guys. Okay, look at that picture. What do we think? Are they bros? Are they bros? Have they got each other's backs? What do you think? Yes, of course they have. This is a done deal. You know, what came over Emmanuel representative from appeaser to warmonger in the matter of Russia and Ukraine. That crudely put, yeah. I'm not going to read that, guys. I just wanted to show you that picture, you know, and let you guys see the interpersonal relationships between these people. Because, you know, I keep saying this, and, you know, you get all these mainstream media commentators saying, oh, they've pledged this and their economic situation. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. It doesn't. Look at the interpersonal relationships between the two leaders. You know, they will find a workaround. You know, they'll dispel whatever law. They'll rewrite whatever law. You know, don't forget, these laws, these legislation, these pieces of paper, they were written by men. They can be rewritten by men as well. So that's the situation on the ground, guys, okay, in Ukraine at the moment. I think the deployment of NATO troops is moving closer. I think if the Russians manage to take the region of, guys, let's just quickly see if we can go on this map. Let me just do it quickly. Yesterday we talked about the Russians making advances in the east. I'm just going to have a look at it now, guys, and see what and I'll share this with you if anything significant happened. Right, so that was yesterday. Right, okay. Let me share this with you guys. I've not seen this yet. I'm not going to do it. I'll do it once you guys are on, so I can see it. So we can see it at the same time. So here we are, guys. Right, so this was on the 19th. I just took it back. This was the situation on the 19th. This area here, Pokrovsk. I think if that's taken, obviously you've got this supply route. You've got the two rail routes coming in. So let's go. That was yesterday. Wow. So hang on. Yeah, so today's not on. So you see this region here, these three arrows. That was yesterday. So they've taken Komyeshiva and Peach. Oh, I'm probably slaying that, guys. There, that's what they took yesterday. I'll show you again. There and there. So the Russians are grinding. The Russians are probably going to come to this road here and use that as a natural choke point. Or is there any rivers? Yeah, there's a river there as well. So yeah, we'll probably use these settlements of rivers. It's hard to cross water. It really is, guys. It's hard to cross water with your military, so you just don't do it. So I'm going to say the Russians are going to use this as a natural handrail, and they'll stop there, and then they'll continue to push this way. So that's it, guys. That is a Ukraine update. You know, the propaganda is all out there. The Ukrainians, they are winning the propaganda war. But the reality on the ground is the Russians are, guys, the Russians are literally just marching forwards in that region every day. You know, we've seen that. I did a, you know, obviously from my video yesterday, I went right, I'll link it at the end. I went right back to the beginning of the Ukrainian invasion into Russia. And I went right back and I showed, I said, right, well, Ukraine has taken ground in Russia, but look how much ground, you know, the Russians are taking in the east. Guys, that is the key city to look for, Pokrovsk. We're looking at NATO boots on the ground if this, you know, if this city is taken. And all these things, it's already a done deal. They've already agreed them. You know, it's already done behind closed doors. Remember that picture I just showed you of Zelensky and Macron? Look at the interpersonal connections between these people, guys, all right? Nothing else matters. Guys, that is it. I'm going to map to grid, and I will see you guys later.